Thank you. I am Trenae Tweedy, Mayor of the City of Lynchburg, and today we're here to bring you an update to the College Dam incident in the Lynchburg area. Stage 1 of the City Dam Safety Incident Action Plan was initiated last evening at approximately 6:20 p.m. Subsequently, the water level rose very quickly at the College Lake Dam, and we immediately proceeded to Stage 3. Following our established plan, the stage requires immediate evacuation of the flood inundation zone. City Fire and Police evacuated approximately 150 homes in a period of less than 2 hours. Multiple city departments coordinated to achieve this safe and timely evacuation. The E.C. Glass High School gym is serving as the shelter point. Last night, with the efforts of the City Department of Human Services, the City Sheriff's Office, and the American Red Cross, we were able to serve 94 individuals. Many of those have found other accommodations, but we will keep the shelters open as long as needed. Families with pets were also sheltered. We appreciate the dozens of organizations and individuals from other local governments throughout the country and private organizations for their offers of assistance in their time of need. I'd like to introduce next and also recognize a fellow council member, Randy Nelson, who is with us today. And next, you will hear from Tim Mitchell, who is our Director of Water Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, my name is Tim Mitchell, and I'm the Director of Water Resources for the City of Lynchburg. And as the Mayor stated, we activated the Emergency Action Plan last night about 6:20, and by 9:20 we were at a critical stage 3. So at that point we began the evacuations and notified emergency services, and they worked with police and fire to execute the evacuations. Since that time, we have been evaluating the condition of the dam. We've had engineers on site this morning looking at the dam itself, and we have determined that the dam is stable at this point. With pending weather coming in again this evening, we are still concerned about its overall stability going into tonight and tomorrow morning, but we are pretty confident at this point that the dam is stable and safe. We are working on plans to do repairs to the dam and get people back to their homes as quickly as possible. Once we determine that the dam is safe, and we want to get past this weather system that's coming up before we allow people to return to their homes, but once we get past that and determine that the dam is safe, we will be, out of an abundance of caution, we will be providing a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week continuous monitoring of the dam, just to be sure that it's safe out of an abundance of caution again. And so we've been working with the state, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, their Division of Dam Safety on their plans as well, and keeping them informed. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Gaynell Hart, who is the Director of Public Works, to talk about road closures.
My name is Gaynell Hart. I'm the Director of Public Works for the City of Lynchburg. Public Works crews responded last night to multiple road closures as a result of the dam incident. We worked all night to clear roads and to reestablish traffic. We also worked on an emergency detour plan all night to be ready for the morning commute. As of right now, we believe we've only got 3 major roads around College Lake Dam blocked. That is 1500 block of Lakeside Drive between Old Forest Road and Joel Street, and that will be blocked until further notice. A 2-lane section of Old Forest Road from Halsey Road to Monticello Avenue, and Mormons Road and Hill Street are closed to through traffic, although we are allowing local access. Right now, we're working on enhancing our signage for the permanent detour, and we'll be releasing that information to the public soon in hopes of having a smooth commute Monday morning. Now I will introduce Raul Diaz, Chief of Police.
Thank you, Gaynell. So yesterday, as has been stated, yesterday at approximately 9:15 p.m., we received the Stage 3 notification, at which time the police department, working in conjunction with the fire department and the sheriff's office, began the evacuation of approximately 150 folks from this community. The majority of those folks went to shelters. We then transitioned almost immediately from the evacuation mode to the security mode, making sure that those areas that have been evacuation are secured. In addition to that, I would just add that while things are progressing positively and we are keeping, obviously positive thoughts in mind, it's very important to note that the all clear has not been given yet. So we ask that folks not return to those areas that have been evacuated until our engineering folks tell us that it's okay to return. So I would ask that you be a little bit patient, but make sure we're not coming back right now because it's not time. And then I would ask members of the public two other things. One of those things is, I understand that this is an interesting weather situation. A lot of people want to come out there and kind of videotape this and maybe take some selfies. This is not the time for that. And what that does is it causes us as the police department to pull vital assets from other areas to make sure that you don't hurt yourself and you're not in places where you don't need to be. So I'm asking you not to do that right now. Second to that, I would ask you that those barricades that you see up there are meant for you not to pass them. So please do not just take it upon yourself to move the barricade and go around it. The barricade is there for a reason. So I would ask you not to do that either because, again, there's vital staffing issues that we're dealing with, and we need those folks where we need them. So please don't do that. With that, I will now turn it over to Mrs. Jenny Huntington from Human Services.
Hello. Our agency had the great pleasure to work with the Red Cross as well as Lynchburg City Schools to open and operate a shelter last evening at the request of the Emergency Operations Group. We housed about 98 folks last night in our shelter and fed them breakfast this morning. Some of them are on their way today. Others remain at the shelter. We have about 90% of those folks who are evacuees, and once the dam is secure and people can return to their homes, they'll be able to do that. About 10% of our folks were actually displaced by the flood. Their homes or apartments are damaged by floodwaters, and rehoming them will take a little more time. The shelter will be open until that's accomplished, and we will be working with those folks in the coming days to help them develop a housing plan for safe housing outside of the shelter. As mentioned, the shelter also has a pet component, and the Lynchburg animal wardens have been very helpful in allowing people to bring their pets because it did increase their comfort. A lot of the folks that we have in that shelter are elderly or disabled in some way, and those pets are very comforting to them as well as the children that are there. So that's been very successful. The Red Cross has been instrumental in providing staff to help, the paperwork, the actual equipment such as cots and blankets. They're providing the food. EC Glass is the location of our shelter on Memorial Avenue, and we are still accepting people into the shelter if they need assistance due to being displaced by the floodwaters, and we'll continue to do intake as long as the need is there. And next, I will let you hear from Bonnie Sverchek, our city manager.
Good afternoon. As Jenny said, I am Bonnie Sverchek, city manager for the awesome city of Lynchburg. I just want to close by saying thank you to everyone involved in response and recovery. Special thanks to Dr. Guerin and the University of Lynchburg for this space in the very spur of the moment. I could not be more proud of the city team, many of which you have heard from, but many of which are sitting behind the cameras and many of which are out in the field doing the work that needs to be done right now. I also want to thank countless community partners and our citizens for their efforts and ask for patience from everybody as we spend the next several days and perhaps weeks working towards resiliency from this event. That concludes the formal part of this press conference. We now open it up for questions that I will most likely defer to the appropriate staff. Sure.
Yeah, I'll meet with. Yeah, Mr. Mitchell, could you tell us what goes into determining when the dam is stable? What are the factors that you look at?
Well, a number of things we look at. One is how much damage was actually done to the dam by the overtopping of the spillway. The second and most important thing that we look for is any type of seepage through the face of the dam or at the base of the dam. If there's no seepage, that means the water is still not penetrating through the dam. So as long as the water's not penetrating through the dam itself, it's considered to be stable.
And there was some talk of opening a sluice gate. Is that true?
Yes, there is an emergency spillway that right now is closed. We have to excavate the end of that spillway. It got covered by debris when the dam overtopped. So the plan is to excavate that probably tomorrow morning after these storms pass, and then we'll open that gate, and that will essentially lower the water levels in the lake. It may not drain the lake completely, but it will definitely lower the lake water levels. And
has this been an ongoing concern? This particular dam is an earthen dam. I know it's been in place since 1935. Have there been concerns in the past?
Well, it's definitely has an inadequate spillway by today's dam safety standards, and the city's been working for a number of years in conjunction with Lynchburg College or the University of Lynchburg now to come up with a plan to address that. It's a very complicated situation with the city actually owns the dam, the university owns the lake, and we're looking at a number of factors such as environmental issues and that type of thing. So we are working on that, and it has been a concern, and we have plans in the works to address that in the future.
Can you clarify whether or not the dam is actually on an at-risk list of any kind?
It's classified as a high hazard dam, and the classification of that is determined by the impacts of the dam if it were to fail. So if there's structures downstream of the dam, in this case there's a roadway and utilities across the dam, there's railroad tracks downstream of the dam, so if it were to fail, it would have a significant impact and basically put lives at risk were it to fail all of a sudden. So from that standpoint, it's classified as a high hazard dam.
Is that a federal or a state?
That's a state classification. Yes, sir.
You guys did studies, some as recently as 2014. Did this fear ever come out of any of those studies? Anything like that come out of this?
Well, it's always been known. Actually, there was a study done back in 1980 by the Corps of Engineers that determined that the dam spillway was inadequate to pass a large volume of water. Up until recently, the dam was grandfathered into the dam safety regulations. Basically, any dams built before a certain date did not have to comply with new dam safety regulations. So it was known, it has been known that the spillway was inadequate to pass the large volume of water coming through the watershed. That's a relative term, though, because by today's standards, dams have to be designed to pass the probable maximum flood. So that's like a once in 1,000 year or once in 10,000 year event. So it's a pretty significant increase in capacity of the spillway.
And in that case, we look at just trying to fortify the dam, or is it time to maybe move in another direction with that stretch of road?
Well, there's two options that have been considered. One is to fortify the dam. Basically, we'd armor the dam so if it overtopped, it wouldn't erode and breach and fail. That's one option that has been looked at. The other option would be to basically drain the lake, remove the dam, and build a bridge over Blackwater Creek. So those are the two options that are being considered long term.
When would ultimate decision be made on which way to go?
That process is currently being handled by Public Works, their engineering department. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, we're still studying that. We also need to consider the transportation system. We feel eventually that potentially Lakeside Drive could become 4 lanes in there, and there might be an advantage to building a bridge as opposed to fortifying the dam. So we're still studying that and determining what our best option is for the long term.
Does this current situation with the dam speed up that process at all?
Well, certainly, I think as we talk and work further into this problem, certainly that's something we're going to have to talk about and figure out where do we go from here long term. Yes, absolutely.
Can you say when exactly that study began with wanting to do those changes to Lakeside Drive?
I cannot give you an exact date. No, ma'am, I'd have to get back with you.
With previous knowledge that this dam could be problematic, why hasn't the city addressed it sooner? Do you have an explanation for that?
Well, we were working on it. It's a long-term process. It's a partnership with the University of Lynchburg, and it requires careful study. We've got to look at our options, and we have been moving forward. Right now, we are working on the environmental studies for the construction, so we have been moving forward very deliberately. Certainly, I've never expected the dam to top. In my career, I've seen it overtop a couple times, and it held. So this has just been an unfortunate incident, and we'll just have to move forward and figure out what the right solution is.
Just another point related to that. A couple of years ago, the state General Assembly passed legislation that required the state to reevaluate the probable maximum flood and probable maximum precipitation event. And basically any dams that were in the process of being designed or renovated, basically that process was put on hold for about a year until the completion of that study to see what ultimately the dam had to be able to pass. So that was another delay in the process. As we were approaching a final decision, that issue came up and delayed the process further as well.
Has the high hazard dam designation been exacerbated by the fact that there's been development here? You got more parking lots on terrain that's higher than the dam itself?
The high hazard classification came about. The dam safety regulations were revised about 10 years ago and included anything. It's really not what's upstream of the dam that determines the classification. It's the size of the impoundment and what's downstream of the dam that determines the classification. And the risk of anything, if the dam fails, it's the risk to what's downstream that determines the classification. Yes.
For people who sustain damages in their homes and may not be insured, how can they get help? Who do they reach out to?
That would not be a question for me.
One of the things that we learned from the most recent tornado was that we needed to create an after-action recovery team. We will do the same for this event, and we are beginning to figure out how to create a response. Other questions? Sure.
Can you talk about some of the short-term repairs you guys are doing to the dam, if any?
We actually had a conference call with an engineer, and I have two different engineering firms working on this right now. We had Wiley & Wilson, which is a local engineering firm that actually went out and did the visual boots on the ground inspection this morning. And then we're also working with Black & Veatch, who is working on the bigger long-term plan for the dam. So we got together today and talked about options, and there are really two options to consider that we're considering right now. One is a short-term emergency fix that could potentially get one lane of traffic back open on Lakeside Drive. And that fix probably could be completed in a week to 10 days. The second option would be a longer term, about a month-long process that would require plans and specifications and approval by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and have to go through their dam modification process. That process would probably take about a month to 6 weeks to complete and get the road back open. That process would probably allow both lanes of traffic to be open on Lakeside Drive. So those are the two options that we're considering right now. Short term, the main goal is to get the water behind the lake down as low as we can. So we're going to be excavating the emergency spillway outfall, as I mentioned earlier, and opening the sluice gate to drain some of the water from behind the dam.
When will you guys make a decision on whether to go with the short-term or long-term plan?
Hopefully today, I actually have not had a chance to even discuss it with the team because I just got off the call recently. So we will be talking about that later today and possibly making a decision then.
And for viewers, I guess, when can they expect to maybe be able to go back home? We're looking at days, weeks?
From my perspective at this point, we want to get through this potential storm event tonight, make sure the dam's still stable tomorrow, hopefully get the sluice gate and the water drained down from behind the dam somewhat, and then do continuous monitoring, again, out of abundance of caution to make sure that there is no additional failure on the dam or deterioration of the dam. But once we do that, hopefully, and this is not a firm commitment at this point until we get through tonight, but hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow we'll know much better situation where we are and possibly let people go home. Yes.
Can you just provide a clarification on the number of people who were evacuated, how many are at the gym, and how many are displaced?
I'll hand that back over to you.
Well, I cannot speak to how many were evacuated. I can speak to how many presented themselves at the shelter at EC Glass. We had 98 residents last night. By our count today, 82 of them were evacuees. The remaining number were what we refer to as volunteers, or those people who had sustained some damage to their home or were flooded out and needed a place to stay. I believe more people than that were actually evacuated, but many went to stay with families or friends or had other resources for shelter last night. We primarily got those who did not have another option.
So the chief said about 150 were evacuated, 82 of them presented themselves to the shelter, the rest went with families. Thank you.
Do you anticipate more? Will you keep the shelter open tonight?
Yes.
For how long?
It depends on the outcome of the storm for the rest of the day today. We will reevaluate after that storm.
And I know we've said the dam is stable and things, but how do you want to reassure residents that, you know, this will not break? Because I know a lot of people are thinking that it still could be, even though we've already said that it's stable. How do you want to reassure them that it's safe?
You know, we are going to do, and have been doing today, our due diligence in working with engineers who are the best minds to look at the stabilization or lack of stabilization of the dam. And we are, you know, we are pleased that where they are right now is that the dam is stable. But again, we want to be totally cautiously optimistic and sure with whatever happens later today. We just don't want to allow people back into their homes prematurely. Yes.
Was the evacuation order mandatory, and did anyone refuse to evacuate those areas?
I'm going to defer to the chief.
So the answer to your first question is no, it's not mandatory. And the answer to your second question is there were a few people who determined that they did not want to leave. But the majority of the people, when they were told the seriousness of the event, decided to leave. And we're very grateful for those folks making the right choice.
Question for the chief. Did you guys have any reports of any wrongdoing in those areas that were evacuated?
No, absolutely not. At this time, we have not gotten any reports of the L word looting. No, nothing like that. We've got our police officers out there. Like I said, we transitioned very quickly. We went from evacuation to security, and we're still securing. So we're out there, we're watching, so don't anybody get any ideas.
And you said for the people that did stay, are you all checking on them to make sure they're okay and stuff?
Right. Well, obviously, the purpose for us asking people to leave those areas is because that creates more of a situation for us. But yes, those folks, if they call 911, we're going to respond.
Can you tell us which specific neighborhoods were evacuated?
Well, I'm not going to go into detail for security reasons, but just suffice to say it's downstream, obviously from College to the Blackwater Creek.
Okay, so seeing no additional questions, this concludes the press conference. Thank you.